So, welcome to part two of the Talking Sports with Dan and Hay show, going through the NCAA tournament bracket here. If you missed part one, we covered the West region. Go check that out on Spotify. YouTube channel will be up soon. So, for part two here, we're looking at covering the East region. First game up on the docket is the number one seed in the East region, Baylor, at 26-6 out of the Big 12. Playing the 16 seed Norfolk State, 24-6. Dan, do you see anything there jumping off the page? Are we looking at another 16 upset over a one?
No, not in this game, but I think Baylor is a team that definitely could be in some trouble after they get a first round win. I think they won last year title and were pretty dominant most of the tournament, most of the season, but that's not the same team Baylor has this year. They've been challenged a lot with injuries and just overall just aren't as talented or as good, frankly. So Baylor's going to win. I don't know how far they're going to go, though, come the other rounds.
Yeah, looking at a couple basic stats here, they're very similar actually to Norfolk State. I think on a pure talent basis, Baylor obviously probably a 15, 20 point favorite in this game. That's not really surprising to anyone. I really don't think, we're going to see anything special here on Norfolk State. They're not a team that jumps off the page either with, passing the eye test or any super athletic talent. Um, yeah, not much more to say on that game. I really think just it's an easy pencil in for Baylor.
Okay. Yeah, I totally agree. And the next game is what's, I think, going to be really interesting, especially for the listeners here in Wisconsin.
Yep. We got the 8 seed North Carolina, 24-9 out of the ACC. Really up and down season. One of their first years without Roy Williams. They're playing the 9 seed Marquette out of Wisconsin. 19-12 on the year. Kind of a very strange season for Marquette. Extremely strong start, similar to that of Alabama, where beat a couple good ranked teams in the beginning of the year and then just kind of underachieved the rest of the year, I would say.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think Marquette is a team, like you said, got off to that hot start, and people were really kind of drinking the Kool-Aid there, but lately they've struggled, haven't been as consistent as they were early on in the season, and North Carolina was kind of the same way. There was one point in the middle of the season, a lot of people were kind of questioning the Hubert Davis hiring. Was he the right guy? Will he be just a one-year head coach, and will they move on from him? Things like that. But they kind of rebounded towards the end of the year. I mean, obviously beating Duke on Coach K night or whatever the heck Duke called that crap helped kind of rile up the North Carolina fans. But this is going to be an interesting matchup. I think overall both teams they're competitive. They're not great. They're not terrible. Both have some good wins. Both have some bad wins. I'm picking North Carolina. I just think they're a little more predictable, and you kind of know what you're going to get from them more consistently than you do Marquette. Justin Lewis has been phenomenal for Marquette, but after that, there's some questions on that team.
Yeah, I agree. I have UNC in this one. Actually, by double digits, I think they do get the win by 10, 12 points. The one thing that jumps off the charts for me for North Carolina is their rebounding. You look at Armando Bacot, he's all over the glass. They're just, they if they take control by rebounding in this game, I think that it's going to get away from Marquette quickly. Their guard play has been excellent all year, and that North Carolina is always one of those teams that's really strong in the tournament, where Marquette seems to always struggle in the tournament.
Yeah, that's one thing I kind of always look towards is guard play, and then also kind of if they have a dominant inside guy who can make an impact on both sides of the ball, and the Tar Heels definitely do that in Armando Bacot, who's averaging 16.5 points, 12.5 rebounds. So I think if North Carolina and Baylor both win, I think that sets up for an interesting round two win.
Yeah, that could very well be a game where you've got a number one seed in Baylor and an underseeded team in North Carolina, which really should be, looking at like a 4 or 3 seed. I mean, that's going to be another primetime matchup, just like any other Duke North Carolina matchup. So Baylor with a really tough draw right in the beginning of this tournament, that's for sure.
Well, especially because North Carolina's got experience playing against some of the better teams in the country. Obviously, they beat Duke recently, but if Baylor and North Carolina meet, Baylor's going to have all the pressure being the defending champions, being the 1 seed. Whereas I think North Carolina, they have the talent. That's not a question. If they don't, it's just a matter of kind of what team shows up that day and if they're able to dominate inside. So,
Yeah, I think in terms of number 1 seed, I think Baylor's the one that people should be circling, as the first number 1 seed to potentially go down.
definitely. But they need, if you're kind of picking against Baylor, you have to hope, I think, North Carolina wins against Marquette because I don't think Marquette has any chance against Baylor.
Yeah, I agree there as well. Jump into the next game, why don't we? We've got the 5 seed St. Mary's out of the same conference as Gonzaga. Kind of a surprise to be all the way up at the 5 line, but that late season win against Gonzaga really jumped them up a few spots. They're playing the winner of the Wyoming-Indiana play-in game. And who do you have St. Mary's playing, and do you think they move on to the round of 32?
I do. I think Indiana's going to win this game. Again, they're the team who's kind of obviously played well in the conference tournament, had a late season kind of hot stretch where they won a lot of games to just even get into the tournament. I think they'll win that game, and then I think St. Mary's is going to win. St. Mary's is an interesting team because, like you said, they beat Gonzaga, and I think overall they've been a pretty solid mid-major over the last decade or so. They're a team that has a 6'10" kid who's a senior who is really kind of dominant inside, and they're going to present some problems for any team they play in the tournament.
Yeah, I do agree with you. I think Indiana wins that game against Wyoming, and the sole reason that I would hang my hat on there is Indiana knows what it's like to have their back against the wall this season already. I mean, They just played their way into the NCAA tournament in the Big Ten tournament. I mean, they know what it means to be winning in, losing out, and this is going to be the same feeling for them. So that they're going to bring everything they've got, and you're going to see the best Indiana team, not the one that you saw in the middle of this season where they lost like 6 or 8 games in a row. So I actually think Indiana beats St. Mary's as well. I think they get to the round of 32. I mean, Indiana's not going to, score 80 points a game, but they're going to play really good defense. They're going to rebound well. They bring a fair amount of size. I just think that, their battle and willingness to just survive is going to be greater than St. Mary's.
Yeah, that's an interesting pick. I think Mike Woodson overall has done a pretty good job in his first year transitioning to the college game. Like you said, they're battle-tested being in the Big Ten, having to play really hard down the stretch just to get into the tournament. It's funny you say that, though, about Indiana beating St. Mary's because you watch all these quote-unquote experts on TV, and some of them have St. Mary's going on to the for sure the Sweet 16, but some even have them going to the Elite Eight. So,
and I see why they have that because if you think about it, it used to be where you would just dump on the mid-major teams where they have no, the ones that do make it to the tournament didn't play any competition all year. But that conference with Gonzaga and St. Mary's has been loaded this year. I mean, you've got a San Diego team that was really good. BYU is definitely not a cakewalk. San Francisco is in the tournament as an at-large bid. I mean, so you've got 4 teams. That's 8 games right there that you're playing against teams that are in the top 50 in the country just about. So, that St. Mary's and Gonzaga a little more battle-tested than years past, so I think they definitely play a little bit harder and they put up more of a fight. But I just can't get past the way Indiana's playing as of late. I mean, the only reason Indiana didn't win the tournament is because they ran into Iowa, who is the hottest team in the country.
Right, exactly. Yeah, they're going to be a fun team to watch. And I don't know about last year, but I know a lot of these kind of play-in games, there's always been at least one team that's won a game or 2 in the tournament.
Yep, there always is.
It's not uncommon for that to happen. So Indiana definitely could be that team this year.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, agreed. Moving on to the next game, we've got 4 seed UCLA out of the Pac-12, 25-7, lost Pac-12 champion. Oh, actually, no, lost in the semifinal round of the Pac-12 champ. Nope, lost in the championship to Arizona. Excuse me. We'll just go back and forth a few more times here. Yeah, they didn't win the tournament. How's that? But they're playing the 13 seed Akron, 24-9. This game, I really don't see a lot of excitement, to be honest with you. I think UCLA at a 4 line is a little bit underrated. They got one of the best shooters in the country, Johnny Juzang. They bring back just about all the experience they did from last year's Final Four team. They're battle tested in the Pac 12. They have the experience in the NCAA tournament, scoring 76 points per game, hard to beat. I really think that's an easy pencil to the next round.
Yeah, you said this game's not going to be exciting. I think it is because Johnny Juzang is going to be scoring a ton in this game. I'm really high on UCLA. I think they're going to win a lot of games and go far in this tournament. Obviously last year they had kind of the benefit of being that underdog team. Frankly, they should have been in the national championship game. Jalen Suggs knocked down that buzzer beater to knock out UCLA. But I really like this UCLA team. They score well. Defensively, they were the best team in the Pac-12 by all the metrics. They held opposing teams to
64 points per game.
Yeah, 30%, 30.1% in league play from three-point lines. So I think this is a team that could go on another big run. Mick Cronin, I think, is one of the most underrated coaches in college basketball. The guy is just a winner. He develops his guys. They always do well in the tournament. I just think UCLA is going to go far.
Yeah. Definitely, for sure. One of the interesting things too that I was looking at that kind of pops off the charts for UCLA is they have a net ranking of 10 and a KenPom average ranking of 8 for being a 4 seed. That's usually for teams reserved for the 1 to 3 line. So the fact that they're that high up, on the net ranking and KenPom is really surprising to me that they're so far down at a 4 seed. And they're a team that didn't really have any horrible losses. They had the overtime loss at Arizona State, but that was, not at home, and Arizona State was on a little bit of a hot streak, shot unusually well that game. UCLA is a team that shot 35% from 3, which is pretty much middle of the road, but they have the ability to shoot above 40 on any given day, no problem. So that's really where I think they kind of step up to the plate and they win a few games in the tournament.
And if they don't face a team with a bunch of size inside, they can kill a team inside the three-point line. In Pac-12 play, they were shooting around 50% from inside the three-point line. And Juzang likes to drive the ball to the hoop and is a phenomenal player overall. So I just think they have a lot of ways they can win games, and I think that's definitely going to help them.
Yeah, I agree. UCLA is definitely one of those teams that has a really good shot at coming out of the East in the Final Four. Like you said, as long as they don't run into a team with a lot of size and kind of looking down the list here, teams that come to mind were definitely Purdue and Kentucky. Baylor's got some size, but it's not anything that, shoots off the charts. North Carolina's got, Bacove, but he can't play the entire game. He gets into foul trouble. There's some risks there, but definitely Purdue and Kentucky, two to watch to knock out UCLA. Obviously Purdue with an enormous amount of size on their team. And we'll get to that game in a minute. But speaking of the next game, we'll move on. We've got the 6 seed Texas, 21-11, playing the 11 seed Virginia Tech, 23-12, who's probably the most interesting story in this tournament by far. Virginia Tech, team that didn't really play well in the ACC at all this year. They were a 6 or 8 line going into the ACC tournament, not even projected to be in at all. And they go ahead and just dominate and win the entire ACC tournament. As a complete shock to everyone. Looking at their net rankings in KenPoms, they're at the 27 and 23rd ranking, which is honestly enormously high, in my opinion, for this team. We know how low their lows are and how high their highs are. This is one of the games I definitely have circled, and I honestly think you might as well flip a coin as to what's going to happen here.
I have Virginia Tech winning this game. Texas has been, I don't want to say a disappointment because they weren't good last year, and I don't know if you fully knew what.
They did lose in the first round of the tournament last year, or 2 years ago, pre-COVID.
Yeah, and Chris Beard, good coach, at least he was at Texas Tech. I think part of that has to do with Mark Adams and being how good of a defensive coach he is. But Texas, up and down all year, like you said, and Virginia Tech is, if not the hottest team coming into the tournament, one of the hottest teams. They've won 13 of their last 15 games. in that span, they're shooting 39% from three.
which is
I
eye
think,
popping on the charts. I mean,
yeah,
that's of the top 20 in the country. So
right. And I mean, so they play Texas in the first round. Texas is the higher seed, probably has more pressure on them to win this game. So again, kind of underdog. Hopefully they can just ride the momentum. Virginia Tech, and then if they win and say Purdue wins, they got to play Purdue, and I mean that will be a tough game for them. But no one's counting on Virginia Tech to make a run, and that's what helped them in the ACC tournament. No one was counting on them to do anything. Everyone thought they'd be an early exit, and they went on a run. And I think they're going to at least win a game here in the tournament again. I think Texas is just,
yep.
They're bad. I mean, they're bad.
Yeah, I agree. This is definitely a close game. I would not be surprised to see Virginia Tech make an early exit here in the first round and surprise a lot of people. I mean, the problem with Texas is their defense is just suffocating. There is very, very little chance that this is not a single-digit game, regardless of who wins, just because it's going to be so low scoring. I mean, Texas only gives up 59 points per game. You know, that's probably one of the best in the country. Maybe not the best in the tournament, but you know, they shoot the ball really poorly as well. So again, they don't score a lot, but they don't give up a lot either, which is why their record, you know, is 21-11. I just find this game hard to get even maybe into the 65 point range. I think you score 65 in this game, you probably win.
This game, for me, it all comes down to Virginia Tech and their ability to just make 3-point shots. If they're not hitting their threes, they're not going to win. But if they're sinking some threes, it doesn't even have to be at a 40% clip. If it's at a 35, 33% clip, that still might be enough to win because, like you said, Texas, their offense has just been inconsistent all year.
Yeah, agreed. So let's move on to the next game, the one we've mentioned a few times here. You got the three-line Purdue, 27-7. A little bit of a disappointing end of the season. You know, they lost a few games down the stretch to Michigan State, lost in the Big Ten tournament to Iowa in the championship. They play the 14-line Yale at 19-11 coming out of the Ivy League. You know, I just going to be straightforward on this. I really don't think there's anything to worry about for Purdue. We might as well pencil them into the next round right off the bat. They're another team that shoots the three-point shot really well, 39% of the best in the country, scoring 80 points per game and only giving up 68. I mean, that's a pretty big point differential. You know, battle-tested, playing a ranked team every other day in the Big Ten. I mean, they're playing against Yale, who really doesn't see a lot of high competition. The Ivy League was a little bit down this season. I just think that this is an easy one to pencil in. You know, Yale's one of the teams that's got the worst KenPom ranking in the 140s. So enlighten me if you think there's something different here, but
No, I think you're spot on. I think Purdue's going to win this game easy. I think where you start watching Purdue and how they do is once they get past the second round and potentially a matchup with Kentucky because, I mean, Jaden Ivey could be a top 5 pick, probably will be. Guy's a really good guard who scores well, makes a lot of threes. They got the 7'4" kid who's almost averaging a double-double. My only concern with Purdue is Jaden Ivey is a phenomenal talent. I just don't know if he can carry Purdue.
Well, their bigs are going to have to contribute. I mean, they've got the 7'4" kid, but they also have, Williams, who's another fantastic post. So there's no drop-off when they sub out their bigs. I mean, there's always one really solid guy in, which makes Purdue such a dangerous team in this tournament. And one that people probably would rank up among the 1 seeds.
Yeah, I think Purdue's going to win a couple of games, but I think they're going to run into problems, especially if they get to Kentucky. I don't think Jaden Ivey, for as good as he is, I don't think, like you said, he needs help for Purdue to go kind of on a run. So the Big Ten desperately needs a team or two to get to the Elite Eight. Purdue can. They have that potential. They just have to play up to it as a collective team.
Mm-hmm. Agreed. So let's move on to arguably the most upsetting matchup in this tournament. You've got the 7-line Murray State at 30-2, and then they're playing the 10-line San Francisco at 24-9 out of the same conference as Gonzaga. And honestly, these are two of my favorite teams coming into this tournament, and unfortunately, they play each other right off the bat. You know, two teams I'm extremely high on. They both have incredibly good guard play, really aggressive teams, fast-paced game. I mean, both teams scoring in the high 70s in points per game, giving up in the mid 60s. So I think this is going to be a fireworks show. There's going to be a lot of excitement, high scoring action in this one. In the end, I think San Francisco gets the win. I don't love the way Murray State's been playing down the stretch. They barely squeezed out of their conference championship game. I mean, they're in the tournament no matter what. But, the couple games I did watch at Murray State, they barely won them, one by 3 points, one by 2 points. San Francisco really gave Gonzaga a run for their money twice. They beat BYU handily in the tournament, played St. Mary's very hard. I just like San Francisco to win with this one with their guard play.
Yeah, you summed up the matchup really well, and I don't know why the NCAA didn't kind of. I don't know why they had to put two mid majors against each other, because in the Midwest they have 7 USC versus 10 Miami. Why couldn't you have moved Miami to face Murray State and put San Francisco up against USC? I think that would have been fun to have both those mid majors going against high major teams and kind of seeing how they did. And both teams, I think, too, got a bad draw simply for the fact that they have to play Kentucky in the second round. I'm going with Murray State. Part of that might be just Murray State is more of the known commodity. They're more of a, I don't want to say household name when it comes to mid-majors, but they've been in the tournament recently. They have the record. They have good guard play. And while it wouldn't shock me to see San Francisco win, I think it's going to be a close game. I'm picking Murray State. It's going to be interesting, too, from a Vegas standpoint. This game keeps going back and forth in terms of the favorite. Murray State opened as a favorite. San Francisco earlier today was the favorite then, and now it's switched back to Murray State. So I think this game, a lot of people are going back and forth on it, but I think you're right. I think San Francisco actually will probably become tip-off time the favorite in Vegas to win this game. So it'll be a fun game to watch. It's a shame that those two mid-majors have to square off.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't think you can go wrong with either team that wins here. I mean, the real loser of this group is Kentucky. I mean, they're going to have to play a really, really good 10 seed or a really, really good 7 seed no matter what. So they really, I think they got a really unfortunate draw in the tournament. And either one of these teams is one that I could see moving past Kentucky and getting into the Sweet 16, if they play well. And, let's move on to Kentucky's game here. Kentucky is the number 2 seed playing, 26-7 on the year. Playing 15 seed St. Peter's, 19-11. There's not really a lot to talk about here. I'd pencil Kentucky in right off the bat. I mean, Kentucky, one of the best rebounding teams in the country, over 40 rebounds per game. They're a high-scoring team, scoring 80 points per game, of the best in the country once again. They both shoot the 3 ball at the same clip, St. Peter's and Kentucky, around 35%. But Kentucky is just, they just outmatch St. Peter's from a size perspective, from a speed perspective. I just think that Kentucky's defense is going to lead them to a lot of easy layups in this game. And I don't see it being close. I think Kentucky's up 15 at halftime and just cruises to a victory.
Without a doubt. I don't even know where St. Peter's is, so definitely not picking them. But for John Calipari, this Kentucky team going deeper into the tournament, if they do that, it will be interesting to watch because unlike previous years where Calipari mostly had those one-and-dones, I mean, he's the one who made one-and-dones famous. This year's team has a nice blend of youth and experience, so that's only going to help them. You said they're going to have a tough matchup against Murray State or San Francisco. I mean, I think it'll be competitive, but I think Kentucky, it has a clear path to obviously the Sweet 16. Purdue is going to present some challenges. I think that's going to be a good game, but I could see Kentucky at least being in the Elite Eight.
I completely disagree. I'm avoiding moving Kentucky even into the Sweet 16 at all. I just think that this St. Peter's game is, kind of a cakewalk for them. Nothing against St. Peter's, but Kentucky just outmatches them on all fronts. But the second round game for them is going to be super challenging. If Kentucky doesn't shoot the ball well, which they haven't recently, and San Francisco or Murray State with their excellent guard play does, I think that's where that Kentucky can run into trouble because they rely a lot on good guard play and good defense, from their guards to create turnovers. But I just don't see San Francisco and Murray State's guards just coughing the ball up very frequently.
No.
So I see that as an issue spot for them. But then I also see that if they should somehow get to the Sweet 16 and end up playing Purdue, I just think, Kentucky, again, you're looking at, well, are they going to shoot well in that game? Because they're going to have to. They're not going to be able to drive into the lane and penetrate with Purdue's size with ease. So there's going to be a lot of block shots and affected shots, by Purdue. So again, I think Kentucky has arguably the toughest path to the Final Four for a 2 seed in the tournament. I mean, their 3 seed's probably the strongest, and their second round game is probably the 2 best 7-10 seeds in this tournament. So who do you let me ask you this, who do you have going to the Final Four in the Elite Eight from the East?
Yeah, for the elite, this is one of those regions I've struggled to pick here. But I have UCLA beating Baylor to go to the Elite Eight, and then I have Purdue and Kentucky in the Sweet 16. Kind of going back and forth on that. Right now, I have Kentucky, and I have UCLA beating Kentucky for the Final Four.
Yeah, this is one of those regions where it's very tempting to pick the 1 through 4 seeds into the Sweet 16 because they just feel like very strong teams. But this is one of those regions where if you're looking to make some hay up or try to pick that perfect bracket, to maybe pick some strange upsets. I mean, picking a Murray State or San Francisco to beat Kentucky, a Virginia Tech to maybe somehow beat Purdue with good shooting. That's where you could be looking at the chance to either win your pool outright right there, if you get a couple of those games right, or be closer to that perfect bracket region, which is pretty much impossible, as we all know anyway, but worth a shot if you've got an extra bracket to play around with.
Yeah, and there's always going to be that one mid-major, that double-digit team that always, like we said earlier, goes on that run. So definitely could be Murray State or San Francisco. I wish they would have gotten a better draw with not having to face each other right away, but they could beat Kentucky. I think Kentucky, like you said, is beatable. I think they have a very high potential, but also kind of a low floor too. Mm-hmm. So it should be interesting. Who do you got in the Elite Eight Final Four?
So in the Elite Eight, I have I've got Baylor beating Purdue to go to the Final Four. I think Baylor just puts it together. I mean, they've got the experience. They did just recently win the national title. Purdue just has these weird blips where they just play really poorly against subpar teams.
I know.
And it's not that it's inexcusable. You can't play perfect every game, but it's just weird because they'll lose by like double digits, and it just makes no sense because they're such a talented team, and you would think that, even if they don't bring their best basketball, they're going to be winning most of their games, and if not losing by a score. So that's my pick. With that, we'll wrap up part 2 of Talking Sports with Dan and Hay. We hope you enjoyed it. Hopefully we were able to give you some good insight on the East region and the 2022 NCAA tournament. Thank you.